Right.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, we kind of automate a lot of the testing that you guys
Yeah.
do.
Well, I don't know if I don't know what role you play.
It's on already.
Oh, sales guy. We're trying to ramp up the ability for companies like CloudBeast to sort of sell sauce on their own paper if they ever want to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're ramping up that this year. That kind of a program. I don't know if that's interesting to y'all or not, but it seems like it's a big pain to say. All right, now go talk to those guys.
I mean, typically they already have whatever.
Yeah.
Either Selenium or
Yeah.
Eggplant or you guys.
Yeah.
And
We're partners with
How
Eggplant
do I
too,
put this? Can you help
and
me?
they also resell
Oh,
it.
this way.
So,
Okay.
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Yeah, so we just see it. They already have the platform.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
we just use
There you go. Perfect.
That's cool though.
Hello from
Cool. Yeah.
Bring the code
From
and
Gartner.
along with the testing.
Yeah.
See if it passes or not. And then continue that with the
Cool. Good deal.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big
Cool.
fan of your company.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm a big fan of CloudBeast too. I mean, it really. A lot of our customers that run Jenkins on their own were kind of like, it's really hard.
We're here to help you.
Yeah, it's like I think people just don't appreciate how hard it is.
It's hard.
Yeah, just how hard it is to keep everything right.
It's done properly. It's easy to carry.
Yeah, but you really have to have a special kind of staff for that, something like that. All right, see you.
So, welcome. We are live from Gartner at the moment.
Gardner, Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas.
Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas. So, I have the unfortunate apologies to make to you. Last night, flew in straight off the plane, and then we ended up a few hours talking about the future of mobile device testing. And then we're joined by Albertsons as well. Today we had a keynote presentation on AI Unleashed.
That's right.
Which was very interesting. Do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit for people?
Sure. I'm Fani Kasibotla from Albertsons, and I had a very good session along with Jonathan today. We did a complete story. We went through how the journey was of Albertsons last 4 years, and how we have moved ourselves from a manual testing, then adapting Eggplant tool, and how we have scaled up using the automation tool. And where are we right now? It has been an incredible journey. So thanks to Keysight.
You saw the demo, right? You saw the demo today. So we've got robotic art, even the same robots. These guys have got 10 robots running 24/7.
24/7. That's right.
7 days a week,
Yeah.
254.3, whatever the number is, using pretty much exploratory mode, right? So they the reason they can run all the time is because they created the digital twin.
That's right.
And the AI-powered aspect is literally going through and finding thousands and thousands of different paths. And this is what I actually wanted to talk about today with Source, actually. So, last night we were talking a bit about kind of the multiplier effect of maybe data, combinations of data, as well as devices, right? And I think that's really interesting because, as Albertsons has a shopping app, like how many different device manufacturer combinations have you got? You've got 10,000, 20,000 scripts that you're running. Multiply that by 1,000 devices, 2,000 devices. What's a typical, full, if you were kind of looking at like US usage alone, what would you say is a sensible amount of devices that they would need to cover?
So I think it's important to take the context of the business you're in, which for grocery means everyone, right? Everyone needs groceries. So you're always going to have. So when we talk to health insurance companies, we tend to think you probably need to keep some older devices in play for longer because your demographic is going to skew a little bit older. So people aren't necessarily replacing their phones every single year the way some. Like if you're doing TikTok, you probably don't need to cover an iPhone 6. But for grocery stores, you probably need to cover every device out there, including people who refuse to update their operating systems. So for all that, there are thousands of combinations.
And then you add in things like iPads, right? So, I did a future retail quite recently, and we were kind of talking about this we've talked about omnichannel for a long time, but actually there's this device shift where people kind of go from, the comfort of my iPad, sat, ordering stuff, adding it to the basket. And then actually when it comes to, wait a second, I'm going to go onto my laptop now, and I'm going to then go on the browser and finish off that transaction and maybe pay on there. And then I might even go across onto my mobile device and then check, have the pick up on store or whatever else it is. Suddenly, you're going between 3 or 4 different platforms. Now, we know from a platform estate, right, that you've got like if you're in the mobile line, you might have a Flutter or whatever application technology. If you're using Flutter or React, you might not have that on your front website. And then again, they've got all these different variations. Is the experiences, the digital experience across all of those channels, even things like virtual personal assistants. Oh, add some milk to my
right.
like,
Analytics,
where does it end, right? That's the thing. It's those journeys aren't as straightforward. So, I know you guys have got Backtrace, and I love Backtrace. I kind of fell in love with Backtrace. But what Backtrace does is it kind of gives you that whole landscape, gives you all the crash analytics,
from the back end,
tells you, your type of journeys that you're going through, what the experience is like, what the performance is like. And this is one of the things we talked about today. Is like people navigate so quickly, and they get, if the app doesn't work, they move away, right?
Yeah. We're going to go to another grocery store or something like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, that is such a big multiplier. And I think we talked a little bit about it today. We talked about brand damage. What's the brand damage that you can't really measure because people unloading your application, which is kind of classed as hit and run, right? They'll load it on. Then first thing it does is it prompts you to have some sign-in credentials, and you're thinking, I don't know what my sign-in credentials are. And then it might have single sign-on. Then it's saying to you, do you want to log in with Facebook? And you're like, face what? And you're like, you're going through all this stuff, and it's just like so infinitely complex. And it shouldn't be complex. It should be
very user-friendly
and seamless, right?
Seamless.
I mean, it's the same thing I think we were talking about this morning, which kind of added a level of complexity. It's the whole self-checkout thing, right? In the good old days, they would be scanning the products. They were masters of it. They could scan the barcode.
They know where the barcode is. They know all the vegetable codes.
Whereas, how long does it take us? To every time I'm at the airport and I'm scanning in toothpaste, toothbrush, and then it says, not put it on the scale. Then I'm looking to the left and looking to the right, going, where does it go? There's no more bags anywhere. So you're like, put it on there, put it on here. It's just like, it's not a nice experience, is it? And I think that's the thing we're starting to see now is, we want positive digital experiences, right? And the negative ones we'll tolerate to a certain amount, and then we'll just be disengaged. We'll start moving away. We'll move to competitor landscapes, and that's hard to track if those journeys are completing. And I think that's where analytics is really important.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So just kind of opening it up a little bit, because you've seen the demo, the point of sale demo, and I think your words was, there's a lot of work that goes in that. So you kind of say, okay, I'm using computer vision to look at the terminals. We're doing like pay at pump, for instance. You've got to identify that, what's the frequency? If that's filling up, you want to make sure that it's ticking up correctly. You've got X amount of frames per second. You've got OCR capabilities there using computer vision. You're checking for all these kind of little irregularities that happen on software and hardware, and all the different versions of hardware. And literally, the reason we're streaming 15 minutes late, my laptop decided that it's time for a BIOS update, right? That if that couldn't be any more kind of showing you what hardware, because each hardware is going to have different firmwares on there. If you've got routers, they're going to have different firmware versions on there. You've got different, data throughputs. There's so many variables, and I think this is the interesting. We just laughed at the fact that the Apple phone case, when you put it together, it glows up the color of your phone cases. Now, someone's had to test that, most likely with the robotic arm, but manually, right? And the question is, would you automate that? And I guess the answer is probably not.
Not for a feature that isn't worth anything,
like
but I'm
that.
sure. I would love to automate some swiping a credit card. That would be tremendously beneficial to people.
Sure.
It's funny when I was just thinking about how my mother, whenever I worked at a software company, she would use the software, and then she would report bugs to me. And now that I work for a testing vendor where we test all the software, she reports all of the bugs in all of the software to me. It's like, you need to tell them to fix this. You need to tell them to fix it.
You've got a direct line.
Yeah, exactly. I'll call them right now. Yeah, absolutely.
But that was one of the things they've got a product called Test Fairy. It's got a shake feature, right?
Yeah.
So shake it to wake it, but you shake it, and it then takes all the information you've done, all the activity that you did on the last journey,
step-by-step reproduction and a video,
and then it raises it so it can be recreatable. And I think, in actual fact, I'm surprised that there's not more of this in the live.
Me too.
Because you can see the benefit. Because you wouldn't have to get so many phone calls from your mother-in-law.
Yeah, she could just
she could just shake and wake
shake
right?
and report it. Yep.
But I remember a very old story from Todd DiCaprio. He said when he was working for a large banking company, they had some real performance problems with their mobile app. And they decided the best thing to do, and I've noticed this recently, is that you could turn the screen sideways and play like an Angry Birds game while you're waiting for the page to load. It's like, I think we've got to this point now that our tolerances have got high to let's just refresh the page, or maybe I'll turn off the Wi-Fi, or maybe I'll turn my cell on and I'll turn my cell back on.
Yeah.
And, we know in shops, right, you've got this kind of buyer behavior where they're like looking at a product going, this hot sauce, can I get it cheaper at another retailer? Do I want, is this good value?
Right.
And
comparing with the other,
and it's a buyer behavior, but they they're using these devices to check prices.
Yeah.
And they're really things like guidance, guiding people around the shop, telling them where things are. That then adds levels of location information, being able to put things like GPS data in,
or local beacons that operate off of Wi-Fi to figure out where you are in the store. Something like that.
Which aisle you are in, where is your item looking for?
Yeah.
It will just direct you.
And I see this, and I kind of may take it slightly too far this way as I usually do. But I'm flying into Rotterdam tomorrow. My presentation's on the metaverse, right? And when I did my TED talk, the video behind me was the shopping experience, where you're going in and it's got a virtual recipe of all the things that you want to cook. You love Italian food. It's telling you, you need spaghetti, you need this, you need that. It's guiding you the way. There's some gamification kind of offers coming in, going, why don't you get a bottle of wine, or would we recommend this new promotion, whatever. You can see with things like the Apple glasses coming in from a consumer perspective in 24 to 25, that actually that's going to be overlaid. Now, looking at Reality OS in its current form, which is obviously, we know in 6 weeks' time, Apple are going to be putting their mixed reality headset out, which is really for developers.
Yep.
But then those consumer glasses, and I use them on the fly, actually. One of the air hostess came over to me and says, "Oh, can I try them on?" Because they're lightweight and it just gives you the information over on the screen. So you can see that shopping experience now, that actually you've got to test mobile, browsers, glasses, watches.
Right.
Suddenly there
Fitbits,
is virtual personal assistants.
Yep.
We've got these kind of notifications. I decided after the night we had the other day, I thought, I'll put my noise cancelling earphones, and then I was woken up by an Instagram update that someone just posted, and I was thinking, I don't really want that. It's kind of those, getting it seamlessly working. Things are going to change, and I think it's just going to infinitely add more complexity to it. And I think, where there was an app in the App Store, you're going to get the equivalent on a second screen technology on your glasses.
Yep.
I think we're in for a real challenge. And then you've got things like eye tracking to say, okay, he keeps on looking at this product he wants to buy. And actually now it's thinking, okay, I can use that analytics data to say, next time he comes in, I can give you 40% off sporting goods, or so you can kind of see that unlocking these next generation of retail experiences, where it's going to be so seamless. You'll be driving up to the pay at pump, it will auto-fill, and you'll be off again. You won't even notice. It's just a seamless thing. Your autonomous vehicle probably will take itself from the the parking lot, go fill itself up, come back, and it has the loyalty. I think this is the interesting thing, because loyalty and the cards, and all that tracking of information, which helps you know more about what your customer behavior is doing, is really important. And locking in loyalty to brands, I think, is really critical. So, with that said, I know we've talked about robotics this morning and point of sale.
Yeah.
We've talked about some interesting stuff around kind of some of the new capabilities Sauce has brought up.
Yep.
You were just talking about the Docker container bringing things local. So when we first started working together, we talked about the virtual USB. So the device felt like it was plugged in to your actual machine, and it was as fast as it. And you could get any type of device you want. Obviously now you've seen people like the Pixel flip phones come through.
Yep.
It's an endless thing. So where do you see this going from your perspective?
I mean, I think that there's going to be more and more need for performance increases. People are writing more and more tests. They need to be able to get to more devices quicker with a lot more tests. Honestly, I think some people are actually still over testing. That's a thing that we're hoping also. I think that down the road, what I want is I want a platform like SauceLabs to be able to advise you that, here's a heat map of all the stuff that you have tested. You are good here.
Okay.
You need over here. Like, imagine if a heat map could be built like that represents a map of the application you're testing. I want it to be able to tell you after a series of tests that are run to say, you missed this. Here's the thing you also missed. But also, while we were running that test, we noticed an opportunity that you could change the contrast between the text and the background so that someone with visual impairments could have a better time, easier time on your site. Or we noticed that this JavaScript variable is not being handled in a secure way. That's a vulnerability for CSS. You didn't have to write a security test. You just ran a test, and we just happened to pick up some signals passively around security, performance, accessibility, that kind of thing. Because I've always had this idea that we are, Sauce, traditionally, companies like this have been treated kind of like a dishwasher where, you're done with dinner, you put it in the dishwasher, and the dishes come out clean. But what if the stuff that's being washed off of the dishes could indicate, you need to eat some more vegetables. You need to, we've analyzed what's going on, and you got too much sugar in your diet, something like that. We should have all this stuff. We have 1 billion tests a year that run on our platform. We're starting to really start to pull out signals for not only here's what you may not know about what's going on in your software, but here's what you could do to take it to the next level. Test less, test smarter, cover more risk.
And what I like about that idea as well is because you've got that data, is you can kind of start looking at the trends as well. And, this is one of my favorite things where it's like, okay, you've got maybe the behaviors for using mobile app shopping in Vietnam or, a slightly different, like we took in Hawaii, Safeway versus, so Albertsons in another area. You start seeing these distinct buying behaviors that are changed. And then you start saying to people, look, we see that actually only 40% are adopting the latest devices. They're heavily skewed towards maybe Apple device testing in an area where, if you look at something like Canada, which has been historically BlackBerry kind of still existing in those devices, and RIM, you kind of think to yourself, you want this insight and you want it to kind of recommend the next best test. Now, this is interesting because this was kind of my conversation with Diego like a couple of weeks ago, was around what we were referring to as tester GPT. So we've got this point now, and especially with Auto GPT and Visual GPT being kind of newly released, is Visual GPT can say, here's the screen, right, in SauceLabs. And it is literally, that screen is, telling you this information. Actually, the SauceLabs logo is, a pixel out or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And it's, it's adding this persona in there, which kind of says, I'm reading this and then I'm understanding the context that I need to do a little bit more on accessibility. I want to do a bit more on, which we were talking about, things like localization testing.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
And I think this is the interesting thing, is that it should be able to play those personas, and it doesn't necessarily have to be generate a ZAP test or an OWASP test to do some security when you don't know security, but it should be connected enough to say, here's a whole stack of things that I'm observing.
Yeah.
And this is this test observability aspect that says, actually, performance has dropped by 4%. That might not mean anything to anyone, but the time to catch it is when it's occurring and you're measuring and monitoring everything. And I see tools like the generative AI tools adding value into those areas. And also that same kind of flexibility. If you look at the source estate and you go, oh, we do API, we do, codeless, we do, device, we do secure desktops on demand, you do all this
mobile app distribution.
How do I use something like Auto GPT, which is saying, actually, I can be testing these things here. I can be leveraging, like you were talking about, picking a Swagger spec or an open API spec and going, actually, I've seen this document's just changed. I recommend we add 3 more ones, and here's the assertions that I would recommend based on the request, because I'm understanding that.
Here's some contract tests. And,
and I think that's what we're going to get to, is this kind of, and Paul Gerard kind of said it best last time, where he's like, I turn my back on the machine and it just says, well, I could be doing stuff. I've got stuff I could be doing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, maybe a little bit scary, but I think, we were very much in that mentality of, well, I'm going to run all my 4,000 tests because what happens if I don't?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Instead of going like what you guys are doing, is going, I'm using bug hunting because I want it's catching that 1/3 extra or however many more bugs because it's not going through the same routes. It's trying different new things. And I think that's it. I think we've got to get to this point where we do more with less. We're looking at, not over testing, but at the same time diversifying, because I also think we are very much domain experts that kind of go, oh, well, I'm going to look at the UI and the pyramid and go, well, actually, maybe I'm not doing enough API tests. Maybe I'm not doing enough static code analysis. Maybe I'm not, doing good practices when it comes to my pipeline, or maybe I'm not doing anything useful with my reporting. And I think the whole SDLC can have these, as Diego would say, Turing bots that will play these personas of deployment engineers, chaos engineering, site reliability engineering, all these kind of disciplines that we're seeing that add benefit at certain points in the life cycle. So, I see this technology kind of really quite exploding, but to me, it's a multiplier effect.
Absolutely.
It's the devices, it's the data, it's the platforms, and that's what you were
combining
kind of
the insights and signals together to make sure it all constantly improves.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, I think with that said, I think we will turn this into hopefully a podcast. We've learned some great stuff. Any kind of key takeaways you want to give for Gartner? I know you did the keynote this morning, didn't you? Did you? What was your kind of observation or key takeaway from that?
So one thing what I liked about the keynote topic was the tortoise upside down. So it's those things. So so one takeaway I would say about the AI, fearing about the AI. Everybody is talking about AIs. So that's the future, we know. But everybody also has some fear on how it takes over the humankind, so mankind here. So that's something I was thinking about since the speaker was talking about it and how we are thinking about it. Back then, couple of years back, so computers were something new. Everybody were feared about, oh, what would the computer do? But now computers is part of our life. It's like everything. We have a dress on and we have a laptop or something in hand. It's part of our life now. So similar way, AI will also help us in a good way. So, but we have just to adapt it as it comes. And so that's something I was really thinking about. That's one of the takeaways for me, actually.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, my one, which is from Alid, actually, is around this A pyramid, around the value of assurance and insight and these kind of capabilities. It's that if you've got device farms, infrastructure, cloud, and then under here you've got tooling and tooling capabilities, and then at the top you've got insight and assurance. Suddenly, bringing that information upwards, the value at the top, like what you get at the moment with the heat map of this has not been tested enough.
Right.
Here's the risk profile. You need to spend more time here to build confidence up. I'm actually thinking we need to find a better way than inverted V model. But whatever we're going to call it, I do think this automated test assurance is going to, and platforms that can take that information upwards. Is going to unlock a next generation of capabilities.
Yep. And I think I honestly think that ChatGPT shows a lot of promise in helping us get to that point. Like a shocking amount of promise for how new it is to to us at this point. So I think it's been great. I haven't really been to any sessions. I think my takeaway is that this is a shockingly good set of vendors to bring. I think it's really good to walk the floor. Everyone seems to be on their game. It's great.
Wonderful. Well, with that bombshell, we are going to leave you and thanks.